All right, shall we go live?
Yes, sir, we are live. So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the third panel discussion at the Future Ready Education Summit on the topic Building Future Ready Campus for New Age Learning and Higher Education Framework for Upscaling. So, in this panel, we are joined by esteemed speaker, and I would like to welcome Professor Dr. Kamal Kishore Sharma, who is the advisor and former Director General, Taxila Business School. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
And we are joined by Mr. Tarun Singh Anand, sir, who is the founder and chairman of Universal Business School. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And we are joined by Dr. Sujata Shahi, who is the Vice-Chancellor of IILM University. Welcome, ma'am. And the last, we are joined by Professor Dr. Yamini Agarwal, Director of Bharati Vidyapeeth Institute of Management and Research. So, welcome, ma'am.
Thank you.
And so now I would request Professor Dr. Kamal Kishore Sharma, who is to moderate this session and take it ahead. Thank you so much, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Shubham. It's a pleasure to be with all of you here, the August group of the ladies and gentlemen and the audience. I hope we are reaching out far and fine and very, very clear. The topic for the discussion of this group is about, we've tried to define it. There are two sets of topics, in fact, and we will try to do justice to whatever possibilities we can. The first topic is about, just a minute, is about building future-ready campus for new age learning. And the second topic is about higher education framework for upskilling. So we have our hands full. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, on the group. Pleasure to be with all of you. First question straight away. It's all about people talking about technology as a powerful tool to transform the learning process, and campuses are getting ready for that. Let's have it from you guys, from your personal experiences. I'll round it up with what I have seen so far at your institutions and how technology is getting used to transform the learning process at your institutions. We can start with, in the reverse order of introduction. Professor Yamini goes first.
Well, I think with COVID, a lot of things have changed, especially the way technology has made its way towards the education and the way it has changed the way we deliver our learning outcomes. So, a lot of things I believe has come across in terms of how technology today can be used in collaborating largely with the global players as well as regional as well as national players. So, when we talk about this, what is remains most important in a classroom setting or in a infrastructure requirement is that we give them real life overall life experience, whether it comes to classrooms, whether it comes to playgrounds, whether it goes to metaverses or anything else. So what does need is needed by all institutions today is to ensure that the technology is enabled at all platforms. So you need to have where you need to have classrooms with video conferencing facility whereby your AVs can start and can create an audio effect which is of a real life effect. At the same time, you need spacious but also air conditioned rooms or rooms which are accommodative of the environment at the same time, and also a lot of sufficient space for indoor and outdoor facilities to be able to have people garner the experience to reach out to their best potentials in all possible levels. What becomes important here is that the technology plays a very important role in collaborating between different schools, different experts at all different levels that we are talking about, whether it is in terms of delivering education or coming together for any particular other aspect of the educational ecosystem. So that's from my side.
All right. Yeah, since good points raised specifically about the space, indoor and outdoor, and the student experience that the student ambassadors often talk about in the markets, and specifically about air conditioned. So that's about the going a way in which students expect that the classrooms would be enabled for learning, not just technology, but the environment as well. When we talk about environment, who better than speak about the classroom, the campus, and everything, the wholesome experience of a student at a business school. Tarun, would you take off from here?
Thanks. So, firstly, I'm delighted to be on this panel, which is rare that we get a 50-50 gender ratio. So, I think kudos to be invited to such a panel. In the world of diversity, this is huge. Yeah, and I think we're very passionate about this. Coming to technology, I think, I always step back and say, what is the future of management education? And then, that brings up two questions in my mind. Can you function in an organization without mastery of technology or an understanding of how technology brings about business transformation? So that's the question number one. And what will be the jobs of the future? Because we are preparing the next generation to deal with the future world that we are all stepping into. It's very clear and it's apparent that left brain jobs are going to be, redundant, right? Will be taken over by machines. Machines can do a much, much better job there. Newer jobs will require that either you know how to use technology or how to build it. So if I had to just, look at the crystal ball and gaze 10 years ahead, we'll have some definitely automation where computers will replace humans, and let's be fine with that because every new generation of technologies has got us to the next level of productivity, efficiency, efficacy, and we think that that's great. It'll become a different set of skill sets that need to be acquired, but that's not the big story, right? The big story in my mind is that when humans and computers get together, which has never been done before, and it's we see keep seeing advent of that. That's when we will create the new superheroes, right? We go for all these comic superheroes. The students love to hear the Supermans, but I think when we can get the redundant tasks to be done better with computers, we all know the day the calculator came. At least for me, it was a big thing, right? I was not an engineering mind, so I think that's where the future is. Now, how do you take that preface and say, how do you take that into developing an academic institution which develops the students with the right skill sets and also re-engineers the way you do teaching? So I think that you need a digital re-engineering of the campus, and one needs to define the student life journeys. And once you define that life journey, what new technologies can aid the student learning? So whether it's tomorrow, business analytics, we're talking of every industry being transformed by business analytics. I love the video I saw yesterday that there is, the world's forests are being depleted massively, right? A billion trees are going in a year. Now there is this technology which has been created where drones are firing bullets into the ground, which are with in eco containers, which have the seed with the nutritions in it, and that's where we are saying we'll create a billion trees every year. Now, it sounds amazing, but I'm saying every industry is looking at that. So, what are the technologies, whether it's AR, VR, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, machine learning? How can we equip our students? So, what we try to do is, look at the MBA and say, can we infuse STEM into the MBA, right? Have a STEM infused MBA. And then we then said, okay, now what about the assessments, right? Can we get it more experiential so that the students actually work on the technology and can imbibe it better than, through that? And then you have partnerships, because everything you can't do on your own. That is very clear, right? We need to partner, whether it's with the online platforms like the Coursera's of the world, to see where they have, nuggets of information from some of the best universities in the world, which you cannot replicate in house for sure. And that kind of technology doesn't even exist in India. So can we partner with institutions like that? Can you partner with institutions to create incubators so that students can experiment on this? So all of this is great. So you've got the technology, you've got the life journeys, you've got the experiential learning. But I always say, in an academic institution and in every institution, culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? So are we ready? Are our faculty ready to adopt this technology at the pace that it's moving and changing the world? So COVID, of course, taught us some things we didn't even know. In fact, I'm sure all of us agree, before COVID, nobody even wanted to do one lecture online, right? That was like considered down market. Secondly, if you ask a faculty to get a lecture recorded, that was also considered, no, this is my IPR. How can I give it out? So that's changed. Now we do case studies in breakout rooms. There are adaptive learning technologies which are impacting and influencing, the self-learning area of students, and individualized learning is possible through such platforms. Then you have simulations and gamifications, which is now growing in thing. So at the end of the day, I think as educators, let's respect the learner. They are very, very tech savvy. Let's enable their thinking, and make sure that we bring the faculty along in this journey.
Interesting, very interesting. You talk about digital re-engineering of the campuses, the education. You pointed towards collaboration. The self-sufficiency cannot be presumed, and hence you have to collaborate with the outside world. Simulations and gamifications, all of such music to my ears. That's the future we are trying to discuss and define here. Professor Sujata, you represent a university which probably cuts across not just management but many other faculties. So, technology may be a complete pariah for, let's say, biology student, or let's say an art student, or anything on those lines. Uh, how do you see future campuses at universities trying to gather from what's happening in the outside world? How do you build future university
So
campuses?
you are right.
We talk about management because they are to lead the businesses. That's, yes, that's important.
So thank you, Dr. Kamal, for this question. And first of all, I would like to thank the organizer for organizing such an apt seminar at this point of time where we are ready to welcome our students back in campus. So infrastructure, you have used the word infrastructure. Then which I could get from your questions: infrastructure, conducive environment, then integration. We have liberal art, we have law, we have management, the integration through technology. So first, I would like to go for infrastructure. Infrastructure is not like single word which we can explain the brick and mortar. Infrastructure is complete changed setup. And during pandemic, we realized what we need to do. So smart classroom, then whole Wi-Fi systems. Can you hear me?
There are
Can
issues
you hear
there.
me?
Yes, we can hear you now, but
I
there
think
were
some
disturbances in
internet.
between. That's the technology. That's future readiness we are
Yeah.
talking about.
Actually, some work is going on. So I think connectivity is slightly both.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Sorry,
Yes,
can you
please.
hear me? So I
Yes.
can
Yeah.
talk about like the first infrastructure. Infrastructure is not brick and mortar or the campus, and We have to discuss the smart classroom, the Wi-Fi system, the technology, everything. This is the first point. Now to implement this smart classroom, Wi-Fi enabled campus and everything, we need to train our teachers also because they are the people who are going to implement. Suppose I am integrating technology in all our courses, MOOC and everything, who is going to justify? We had a challenge to brief our faculty members synchronous and asynchronous. Now we are comfortable after pandemic, so they can design the curriculum where they can enable technology. what can be taught in synchronous form and asynchronous form, which is better for our student. So this is the second point which faculty needs to be trained, upskilled along with technology. Third part, the best part which we felt was other courses. Like we have liberal art, we have law. Easily, this platform have given us choice to pursue their passion. They have option because of integration to select courses from different media and work on their passion. Then the second thing, they can think about purpose of their life, skilling, reskilling, upskilling. These are the things which we integrated as part of skill. Students, they can go for any course because they are available material. They have
uh, sooner or later this had to happen. This connection was very unstable, I guess. Yeah. So
Yes, sir, I'll just take a look on that, and I'll
yes,
tell ma'am to join back. Yeah.
not a problem. She's back. Just let's have 10 seconds.
unless I
Professor
am connecting
Sujata.
with hotspot.
Yes, yes. That's the plan B that I've also got into. Just before starting off, I realized that the house Wi-Fi is not good enough. Yes, you're there.
Yeah. Now you will not have any problem. I've connected through hotspot.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Yes. No, but there's a lag. Anyway, the important point, Professor Sujata, will get back to you when you're able to stabilize a little bit more, and we will check through the process in another 5-10 minutes. I'm sure the technology will stabilize over there. We are talking about technology infrastructure classrooms. A future ready campus, this is half the story. The other half, as most of you have alluded to, is about the faculty culture and the learning process. So learning process connects to the student in class and student out of class, the campus experience that they get. Now, how does a future ready campus connect to how faculty is more enabled, not just about technology? Is there a case for course redesigning? Is there a case for collaborative development of courses? Because as a person who would have taught for 15-20 years, the thought process might get a little narrower in terms of what can be done and what can't be done. So a collaborative redesigning of the courses and all, experiential learning systems, assessment, innovation assessments. Let's talk a little bit more on that, because technology is being talked about everywhere. But when we teach something that has to be more relevant to the industry 4.0, the new technology and the analytics that is invading almost every function, where do you see the case for a future ready campus in context of how to develop culture and student experiences? Yamini.
Well, thank you. I think what is needed is when we are talking about a future ready campus and we are talking about faculty and we are talking about culture to be developed, it's necessitated that the entire mechanism of the overall delivery of the program is such that it is very involving for both the student and the teacher. So there is quite a need for a strong interaction between the student and the teacher. I remember when we were doing the teaching at the initial bits, we had only the chalk and the duster and the board for us to interact with. Today, then it moved to the PPTs, the OHPs that we saw, and then it moved to a particular system where we could actually have videos outlined. We could have people doing role plays. We could have people interacting with the other universities. Especially in the pandemic, what I did realize that even if people could not come, they could interact with you virtually. And when they could interact with you virtually, a lot of barriers went away. I could call, in our institution, we called about 50 people internationally to speak to students because of the pandemic. Why? Because I started reaching out to people, talking to people, and they came up with their ideas and they wanted to interact with the Indian audiences. And so that interaction was possible in the pandemic because of the technology. So when we learned from them, when the faculty learned from them, when the faculty by themselves involved themselves in panel discussions or deliberations, they learned, students learned. Also, we started something called small initiatives like research cafes or student cafes. Research cafes where faculty would come and talk about what research they are doing. They would invite people to talk about what researches that they are doing. Student cafe where students will come together with the teachers and discuss new ideas, whether it is for entrepreneurship, whether it is for something else. Similarly, when we identified a few more things, what was very important or lacking in the pandemic was a physical touch and a face to face interaction. After October, I believe what happened was we had to open up because the regulations allowed us to open up. We couldn't open up in the full scale, so we slotted the manner in which interactions could be done, and they were very effective. Why? Because people who could speak in small groups did not find it easy to speak in large groups, and there was a small interaction that could bring about. We also saw that students were very eager to interact with each other. They wanted to show what they want to wear. They wanted to show what sponsorships they can get, what kind of a talents do they have, which was also inbuilt through cultural fests or through other things. But that was somewhere or the other missing in the pandemic. But still, people were willing to come together, and that willingness to come together brought that culture through and through. So, what you're promoting, what you're doing, will depend a lot upon what the top personals believe in. So, I believe when the top personals identify their culture as to how do they want to grow it, it will also develop in that manner. If they want their faculty to be technology enabled, they will somewhere or the other motivate them to participate in it. Let's say the pandemic forced them. Everybody had to own a laptop. Everybody had to either use a PPT or a small writing pad, which you have, on which they had to deliver their lectures. It was forced, but it was there because they didn't have a way out. So again, a lot depended upon the circumstances and a lot dependent upon the thought of the top management as to inculcating a culture, whether it is of research, whether it is of collaborations, whether it is of participative decision making, whether it is about developing and honing skills through different means, including coming together on different forums. So even a forum like this educates me by other people telling me as to what I can learn from them into developing my institution. So there are
True,
very
true.
important things.
True. I guess you touched an important point that it required the advent of a certain COVID and certain onset of technologies for us to force us to think that it's not just about a physical world. There's a technical world also we can leverage on to gather these kind of training, these kind of learnings, this kind of interchange of exchange of information, and even the student outside the class can engage on various platforms, using the technologies. So I guess we the humankind probably needed this kind of but there is I still see, going back to the physical classrooms, the leaders and educators today see much more value in a physical classroom interaction. And so it just happened that in 2 years we got aware about and learn to use more of technology in class. Professor Sujata, you might be more comfortable now, so please continue and also touch upon this non-technological aspects of a future ready campus that we talked about. You are mute. I guess you are on mute.
Thank you,
Yes.
or
No,
extremely sorry because of this inconvenience. I was talking
not.
about like infrastructure is one part. What we did in ILM, infrastructure is one part, smart classroom and everything. Training of the educators, another part. And third part, I wanted to inform that technology helped us in integration from various schools. Like Dr. Kamal, you checked, na, we have a university and how we integrated. This one was the best part. We started with the ethos of liberal education, and after this pandemic we created a different environment to integrate through technology in our teaching and learning system. The most important part which we all accept, that engagement of student even through online and offline mode, this is very important, and all we accept that after coming back from pandemic they are also enjoying the classroom face to face interaction. But the vision of a leader in organization also important. Then the second part, you talked about how technology is helping us. Simulation, various simulations we used developed during this pandemic to engage our students. Gamification, these are certain technology enabled teaching learning system we implemented in IILM. Like Dr. Yamini said, like we also invited in number of people for lecture even at any point of time, 8 p.m. in night, because that had given a very good internationalization, very good connect with people. But parallelly to develop the skill, we have invited, and even corporate people, they were very happy to discuss with youngsters the new age technology and how these technologies are going to help them in future skills. So this industry connect was very good. We established here Center for Purposeful Learning. The purpose of this center was to give information to our students about their passion, difference between their skill, passion, and the actual job taking place in market. So this center worked very nicely, and still we are promoting this center where students can be informed about the kind of skills industry people want, and we invited industry people to chat with students, interact and guide with students. Second thing, after pandemic, because nobody is willing to go back to the pandemic time, we included more focused on co-curricular activities, experiential learning to develop their skills, because now market is open, industries, so, and you know the location of ILM, so more interaction, more visit and more planned activities as a co-curricular rather than extracurricular, co-curricular we design. Then we have to change our curriculum also completely based on synchronous. We have to delete from our education system rote memory, more application oriented learning, so they will remember for a longer period of time. And these are certain things which we implemented in ILM, and now we feel we are successful, and that's it.
Great, great. I visited the campus, so I can very well presume, what kind of ways in which you could be interacting with the external environment over there,
Yes,
the
yes,
outside classroom environment. You also pointed towards an important issue of, the industry interaction, people coming to class and student getting to learn what they would do in future. From
yeah.
here, let me go back to Tarun. Tarun, Industry 4.0, and a lot of things being talked about that the industry finds 70-80% of the engineers or management graduates, not really employable or not employable. Those kind of things. Is there a discord between what the management schools want to teach and what does the industry expect from us to do? Can we define certain baseline expectations where probably we might be going right or we might be going wrong? You are on mute, Tarun.
This is a interesting debate, and I find it a little more interesting because I spent 20 years in the corporate world. So in a way, I actually tell them, and I was telling Yamini before, that I'm not qualified to be on this panel because I'm from industry and I'm not an academician. So I find it amusing why this debate is there. I think at the end of the day, having been on the other side of the fence, right? I've had the opportunity to recruit from Columbia Business School, NYU Stern, ISB, and SPGen, my alma mater. Uh, I've seen, being on that side, there is a very close, sync up, and most industry require this because the industry realizes if we do not give projects, internships, all kinds of engagement, and there are centers of excellence in most of the top universities in the world run by the corporations, right? The corporations themselves fund those centers of excellence. So I see there is when that is happening, then the corporate is very keen to get that ready, management graduate as such. What has happened is the proliferation of large number of engineering colleges with the not adequate faculty, not adequate qualified faculty, and therefore and not and that's where the issue is, because the numbers are large, right? When we talk of 4,000 or 3,000, I don't know what's the latest count of business schools, and similar number of engineering colleges. I think there's such a demand supply because India is a billion people. So a billion people need to be educated. So you need 4,000, maybe you need 8,000. But we are not able to fully equip these thousands of colleges with the right caliber quality of faculty, the right caliber quality of infrastructure, and therefore if you have the right quality of faculty and infra, then the industry will come, because the industry needs trained and skilled manpower. So the industry will come. So the industry goes to these colleges and says, you know what, it's 80% or 90%, only the bright few. So I think it's a situation that we need a large number of high quality education institutions, or people who are very passionate. I don't know whether you know the statistics, and I'm not supposed to probably share this, but this was shared to me by one of the leading private equity guys. He said 70% of India's education is run by the government or politicians, right? So that is the reality. And then the 10-20% is run by you have the government running it, and then the balance you're left with some private sector who's trying to make an impact in this area, and they bringing the right investments, and you will see the companies, corporations going to these guys. So I think structurally we need to change that, unless we have a way of changing. And I don't have a silver bullet, but I think the NEP is definitely a fantastic position where they are trying to put in systems. They're trying for what Dr. Sujata mentioned of multidisciplinary learning. They're trying to say we will get in, we will not allow these standalone colleges to exist. There needs to be scale, there needs to be quality standards. So I think the intent is great. The execution has started off. I think the time, and I'm putting on my corporate hat and saying, lest the educators get up, the time frame is a little too long, right? You can't give 15-20 years. In 15-20 years, I remember Kapil Sibal had said foreign universities entry into India will be in 2011. We are in 22, and now the new government 10 years later is saying the same thing. Right. So I think there is a lot. And the other very important point I'd like to make is the regulators. They tend to be very, very input focused rather than output focused. So I think with the NEP that will change, but it will take time. It will take years to do that. So I think I've put a lot of controversial comments here, but that's how I am.
No, absolutely. But I'll come back to you with a counter question. Is it not just not a counter exactly, but is it about lack of knowledge that the new student possesses or doesn't possess, or it's about how do they deal with the situations? Because the situations are never textbook alike, right? Or even a case study alike, or even the prior experiences don't necessarily replicate. Is it about is the industry talking about the roundedness, the preparedness of students not exactly with the knowledge, but the way they handle situations?
No, so absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's, knowledge, skills, and attitude. A lot of our friends in the education world focus on the knowledge part of it. Now, very clear, everybody, I'm sure all the institutions here has realized that skilling is more important. Of course, attitude also you need to work on, because we know that's finally what determines success in the long run. So I think as that shift happens, when we get into more skilling, and that's like everybody mentioned, I was so delighted to hear all the panelists talk about gamification, simulation, all
Right.
these
Right.
experiential tools will arm the students, make them more skillful, and I'm sure industry will recognize it. They will see it. So I think it's a journey. It's begun, but at a scale, it's not there yet. And therefore, that criticism will stay. Because unless we can do this at scale across education institutions, I think we will still have to face that criticism that what we are producing is not ready for industry.
Thank you very much. Let me take my share of the time, airtime now. Uh, uh, till about 2000, I was with the industry, with the civil service and the public sector. Did my PhD from IMA and again got back to industry with a multinational, served as a CEO. From there, when I came to into back into education, and the way I saw, I had been exposed to what IMA does in the classrooms. I found that the maybe more than 95% of the other classrooms are so much focused on the knowledge, the content part of it. The And since management is not very close to the science of how do you teach science, so you can have an experiment in class. Simulations had just started coming up in 2000, late 2000, the first decade, and Harvard was putting too much. So I just picked up one simulation in 2011, I guess the first one that I did. Within 2 3 simulations I could find that this is the future of how management could be taught. Similar simulations can be actually, we have moot courts in the law schools, so that's kind of an experiential learning. We have actual cooking by hands in a hotel management school, so that's all. But the abstract aspect of how a manager behaves in certain situations, there was no laboratory to me. So beyond what is written there in the books and in the PPTs and the case studies and in the people experiences, it's about how do we prepare people to think. And not many management institutions or universities are actually focusing on creative analytical thinking, if alongside the other things. So that's the first thing that I brought about in Ansal University, where we started putting into the BCom courses and the BBA courses and the MBA courses about a course in critical thinking and lot of simulations. That was my first brush with use of technology and how to and these tools are extremely capable to create that wow element and a long lasting impression on people's mind on how difficult it is to actually handle real things when they come in hand. Later, when I got into this Taxila Business School, that's my last formal association with a formal business school. I found that it also devolves upon the leadership of the institution on how do they foresee certain things. That they also need to map out their own capabilities, their own faculty, and their training needs, the current level of students, where they're coming from, and the infrastructure part of it. But in totality, if you put all of these together and look at a future on how 5 years from now you'll be doing things differently, that's the mindset you need to, that the flexible mindset you need to bring in. Because if you just wed yourself to one single way of thinking, that's how public universities have brought themselves down to only a very few public universities are being talked about, being of the grade that the real industry needs. So, coming to that question on whether the new education policy or new education framework, specifically since all of us are connected with higher education, the theme is also higher education, uh, creating a single admission framework or a single yardstick for quality assessment rating frameworks. How do you see these things impacting the way the institutions will develop, the smart institutions of future will develop? Yamini?
Well, I think it's a beautiful question because when we talk about NEP, a lot of times people believe that NEP gives them the academic freedom which one requires in terms of reaching out to the quality which they're looking at. And the very fact that it doesn't have to go through the forums of the regulatory requirements, but it does need an accreditation to the fact that you have achieved excellence by itself creates value for the system. Again, what has been seen a lot of times is that many times when the industry is not told what to do, they come up with their own innovative solutions to do something, and those innovative solutions reach out to many possibilities which possibly somebody has not seen through. And that I think when NEP talks about practical learning, or when it talks about you can take up academic courses from one course to another, you can shift from arts to science again and science to arts again, and you can have a multi-entry multi-exit systems, or you can possibly look at a framework which provides for more practical inputs. These are all aspects which one is looking at in terms of developing a framework which is self benchmarking. And a lot of times that self benchmarking is not by itself a lone factor for you, so you're not left by yourself deciding where you're reaching. You do have a benchmark which a lot of people have achieved, and you're wanting to achieve that. So by that standards, you evaluate yourself in each growing year and you evolve. So what is important in NEP is NEP tells you that you evolve and you are not stuck with the same curriculum, you're not stuck for years with the same pattern, but you evaluate for yourself, you evolve for yourself, and you develop for yourself. I think that
Fantastic.
remains the key.
Fantastic points made. Your views, Professor Sujatha.
As per these students, certainly they look for this ranking and accreditation, everything. But what I feel, NEP has given a perfect guideline. Like Dr. Yamini said, we are empowered to do like certain changes and everything. But what happens? These regulatory bodies have given us just framework. We need to work on it. We need to, like Dr. Kamal said, critical thinking and others. Certain courses we have that nobody has given us guidelines to include in the curriculum structure, like critical thinking, design thinking, and we can see the result of these courses in outcome. Design thinking, critical analysis, and some other liberal art courses we included in management program, and the outcome is completely different. Actually, from top to students, like leader, faculty, and students, we should have adaptability to accept the changes and work on it. Like nobody knows the future skills, even we don't know future skills until unless we are marrying or joining hand with industry. We are not able to get to know about future skills which can be integrated in our teaching system. It's a regular updation, adaptation of adaptation, accepting change, either given by regulatory body. And Dr. Kamal, I believe in the framework of regulatory body, but I believe in implementation of those frameworks at our level to upgrade the faculty, to upskill the faculty, change the curriculum, integrate new courses. I remember one course, Literature Through Leadership, one of the IMB faculty, Professor Mani Kuti taught, and that course was like extremely popular. Another course we introduced to management students, Indian Art and Culture, taught by Shobna ji, about Indian dance culture. Students enjoyed and they felt like these are the tradition. Even management, being a management students, these are the things which they need to know. Management wisdom through Gita is a traditional thing. but these are certain courses which are equipping them with multiple skills and better decision maker.
Very, very well made points. Ladies and gentlemen, we are nearing to about the end of this. We'll just take 3-4 minutes, but I want to raise that point on which I want all of you to speak for a few seconds each. The point here is, over the years, I feel that the student inclination or motivation towards learning is going down. Probably somehow this society seems to be, the society of young people seems to be giving up on the opportunities that they are finding around, or the kind of rat race, or the kind of extreme competition on the more coveted things like the civil services or any other thing, and the best jobs going to the best of institutions. So what is left for the 90% of the population? Is there some desperation? Is there some you see that difference in motivation levels, and the need for the institutions to work even harder in future? Tarun, starting with you.
So, I think I'm sure that the fact that you're raising it, there is an issue. I think how can we make our classrooms fun? How can we make the learning engaging? Right? These are the biggest questions in the minds of our educators. That especially we've a lot of the population has lost 2 years or 1 year or some parts of it, and in fact they've gone backward down. And the other problem is that students have this whole crazy amounts of metaverse, Instagram, all of that hitting them. So our faculty tomorrow, our faculty have to be the Shah Rukh Khans of the Amitabh Bachchans of the world, right? That people will come into the classroom and say, "Wow, I want to see this guy or this lady perform," right? So can we, like we said, dance needs to be taught to the students. I think the performing arts and drama needs to be taught to the faculty, so that they can make the classroom so mesmerizing that the students say, "Yeah, is class to main miss nahi karne wala hu. I
Correct.
am want to go for this class." And I think then that motivation comes. And then if you have an engaging curriculum, which we've talked about, where they actually work on the issue, right? So give them problems, real problems, where they can actually sit down and solve. I think they are very, bright, and they are very excited. And you give them something, they're like a tiger who's got some flesh, and they'll go for it. I'm
Engaging,
optimistic.
engaging curriculum, engaging classrooms. Yamini?
Well, I fully endorse what Tarun has said, but I would also like to add somewhere that we need to add a bit of inspiration to people by discussing, talking, and idealizing those people who have achieved a lot in their lives in all spheres. So whether it's dance, whether it's management, whether it is science, so we talk about them, we call them, and we let people know about them. Their life journeys is what will inspire people. Second, an outcome based evaluation as to where your alumni have reached, or where people from different fields have grown over the years, will also motivate a lot of people. So
True
that
that,
is
true
what.
that. Professor Sujata, your closing comments on
Yes, I
this.
have I will go by Dr. Yamini, Dr. Tarun, but one point I have: start your class with storytelling, story about eminent personality or your own story which you weaved. And second thing, challenge the thinking of your students. The moment we will challenge with dialogue, not monologue, class will be engaging. They are looking for that kind of interaction, and the kind of story and the kind of environment we create for learning and lifelong learning rather than short term learning. So this is my suggestion: always engage students, challenge their
Lifelong
thinking.
learning.
Yeah, like,
Lifelong learning and challenge.
yeah.
Gentlemen, my first love is teaching and speaking, and I consider, and I draw from what Tarun said. I consider my each class as a performance. Now, that performance should be worthy of every hour, every minute, every second the child spends in front of you. That's how they get impressions, and impressions last. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank
And
you.
it was a great discussion. Thank you very much. Thanks, Shubham.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for all our eminent speaker for joining us in the summit and making this panel discussion so insightful and full of knowledge. So, and especially I would like to thank Dr. Kishore Sharma for moderating this session so well. And for the audience in this panel, we were joined by Professor Dr. Kishore Sharma, who is the advisor and former Director General, Taxila Business School. Mr. Tarundeep Singh Anand, founder and chairman, Universal Business School. Dr. Sujathas, who is the Vice-Chancellor of IILM University, and Professor Dr. Yamini Agarwal, who is the director of Bharati Vidyapeeth Institute of Management and Research. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for making
Thank you
this
so
event
Thank you.
so great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.